My parents treated me like their family servant until the CEO revealed who I really am. But before I share my story, please take a minute of your precious time to support our channel. Your support and love keeps us going. My name is Amara Brooks, and I'm 34. For as long as I can remember, my parents, Patrice and Leonard Brooks, treated me like the built-in help while my younger sister Naomi floated through life like the guest of honor. Holidays, birthdays, Sunday dinners, if there were people to impress, I was in the kitchen. Naomi worked the room. Last Christmas Eve, my mother called with one of her trademark requests. That wasn't a request at all. She wanted me to cook a lavish dinner for 28 of Naomi's Power Circle with almost no notice. 12 dishes, multiple courses, custom desserts, the whole spectacle. Something inside me finally clicked into place. Not anger, not fear, just a decision. Before I tell you how it all flipped, how the same family who treated me like a shadow started calling me for a seat at my table, let me set the scene. I was in my apartment in Chicago, zipping a suit bag for a business trip, when the screen lit up, Mom. I already knew the tone I'd hear. Amara, cancel whatever little plans you think you have tomorrow, she said, skipping past hello like it was beneath her. Naomi's hosting her partners for Christmas Eve. Real people. Movers. Shakers. You'll need to be here by noon. In the Buckhead house where I grew up in Atlanta, every surface would be glittering, gold ribbon on the banister, crystal on the table. I knew, because I had tied the bows and polished the crystal most of my life. What's happening tomorrow exactly? I asked, folding my blazer. 28 guests, she said. Executives from Harbor Vista Hospitality will be there. Amina Carter is expected. So we will use the good china. And please, don't be late. I pinched the bridge of my nose to steady my voice. Naomi works in brand partnerships and never misses the moment to flex a connection. In our family, that made her the winner. Me. I was useful. Mom, your sister's making important connections for this family. Be grateful to contribute, she cut in. It's not like you're too busy. On my laptop, an email glowed from Amina Carter, President and CEO of Harbor Vista Hospitality, confirming the December 26th final meeting for a contract I had been quietly building toward for 2 years. If only my mother knew. The line clicked off after she promised to text a menu and warned me not to embarrass the Brooks name. I stared at my nonstop flight to New Orleans, 8:40 p.m. the next night, where I was scheduled to present the final phase of a deal that would redefine my company's future. I sat on the edge of my bed as years of small humiliations reeled through me like a film. Thanksgivings where Amara will handle the cooking while Naomi hosts, introductions that sounded like Naomi, our star in partnerships, and then a flat Amara's here too. Thank goodness she can cook. The last blowout had been Naomi's engagement party, nearly 220 guests at a private hall, where I spent 13 hours behind the scenes while Naomi floated in a gown my parents bought on a whim. When someone asked what I did for work, my mother had laughed. She doesn't have Naomi's polish, but she makes a mean hors d'oeuvre. I stood and unlocked the second suitcase. Inside a leather folio lay the document that changed everything. A service agreement on heavy cream stock, my company name Aurora Gatherings pressed in bronze at the top. I picked a name with no hint of Brooks for a reason. For 6 years, I'd built in silence. 60 employees across 4 cities, clients that included luxury venues and Fortune 500 brands. Tomorrow's meeting wasn't just any meeting. If all went well, Aurora Gatherings would secure a $2.4 million multi-year partnership with Harbor Vista's Gulf properties, a move from regional force to national player. Naomi's text arrived on cue. Mom says you're cooking tomorrow. Don't mess this up. Heavy hitters are coming. I looked down at my boarding pass. Flight 281 to New Orleans. Not this time. 2 moments had made my role in the family undeniable. The first, last month at the club, my father introduced Naomi as our success story and referred to me as between roles. That morning I'd closed a $480,000 renewal. But to them, I was a gap. The second, last summer, I discovered my childhood room cleared out. Every trophy, every novel, every photo stuffed into bins so Naomi could expand her closet. Image matters in partnerships, my mother said, as if the explanation were a kindness. Meanwhile, Naomi's temporary office had become an entire top-floor suite my parents paid to renovate. I opened my dashboard. Aurora Gatherings was thriving. No family money, no family name. That week we'd celebrated our 4th location opening. My team had thrown me a surprise for landing the Harbor Vista shortlist. People who saw me. People who said boss without flinching. Another buzz. From Mom, don't forget the rosemary oil. These people have refined palates. These people, she wrote, like I didn't cater leadership summits and museum galas for a living. They never asked how I afforded my condo or my car. They never asked anything. They built a picture of me that was easier to manage than the truth. I scrolled through photos, me shaking hands with the mayor at a fundraiser Aurora catered, my staff popping confetti at our new space in Houston, a feature from Hospitality quarterly dubbing me the quiet architect of celebration. I had learned not to share wins with people who needed me to be small. My phone chimed with a message from our comms firm. Fortitude magazine wanted me for its top 40 under 40 cover package. They loved the built without the family safety net angle. Without a safety net? If they only knew. My family wasn't just unsupportive. They were willfully uncurious. I'd learned to choose peace over explanations. But tomorrow, choosing peace would cost me everything I'd built. A calendar alert hit. Harbor Vista, final in-person, non-negotiable. Dr. Amina Carter would be wheels up to another continent the day after, miss the meeting, and the board would default to their runner-up. And it wasn't just about me. Tariq, my operations lead, had enrolled his twins in a new school based on this expansion. Marisol, our executive chef, had an offer in on her first home. This contract would ripple through every paycheck, every plan. Then came the email that twisted the knife. Mom forwarded her urgent Christmas Eve menu, 7 mains, 11 sides, 5 allergies. Pair each course with a crystal stemware and a note in bold. One of Naomi's guests is Amina Carter of Harbor Vista. She'll be good for Naomi's career. I reread the name. Amina Carter. At my parents' house. Naomi texted right after, Dr. Carter will be there tonight. She's huge in hospitality. Don't embarrass me with home-cooked nonsense. Home-cooked nonsense. I'd quietly catered Harbor Vista's leadership retreat for 600 guests last quarter via my executive team, so Dr. Carter and I hadn't yet met in person. That introduction was scheduled for New Orleans, tomorrow. I sank onto the mattress, heart steady. The decision was simple, even if the fallout wouldn't be. Serve a room that refused to see me, or show up for the room that had been waiting for me. My rideshare reminder flashed. Pickup scheduled tomorrow, 6:10 p.m. I looked from the printed menu to the contract to the boarding pass. Then I called my mother. I can't do it, I said. Silence. Then Steele. What do you mean you can't? I have a business trip. I fly out tonight. Be serious, Samara. What business? She laughed, a dismissive, brittle sound. Your sister needs you. She can hire a caterer. On Christmas Eve? Do you have any idea what that costs? I thought of what it costs to trade your future for someone else's comfort. Family comes first, she snapped. Unless you're too selfish to understand that. Family comes first when you need something from me, I said, calm as a held note. If you walk out on us, don't bother coming back. That line used to work. It didn't anymore. Then I guess this is goodbye, I said and meant it. My hands shook when I hung up, but the tremor wasn't fear. It was release. Naomi lit my phone a minute later, hurling accusations. I turned it off, packed in quiet, then turned it back on to make one last thing easy. I left 3 emergency caterers on a notepad by my door, numbers I knew would answer, and slid my Aurora Gatherings card beside them. They'd never come by. They'd never see it. But I could say I tried. The plane rose through a quilt of winter clouds at 8:53 p.m., Chicago shrinking to glitter and dark. Somewhere 2 states away, Crystal would meet cardboard boxes. Somewhere in Buckhead, my mother would be inventing a story with me as the villain. In my seat, I opened the contract again and found the clause Amina had insisted on. Founder/CEO must be present for strategic planning. She partners with people who show up. I do. I glanced at my email. The Fortitude cover was confirmed, December 27th. By the time my parents learned who I really was, the ink would be dry and the story would be public. Below the seatbelt light, the Gulf shimmered like a dark ribbon. New Orleans waited. So did my life. New Orleans greeted me with warm air and the low hum of a city that never quite sleeps. At Harbor Vista's riverfront property, a welcome card waited on a tray beside a chilled bottle and 2 flutes. Ms. Brooks, excited for tomorrow's strategy session. Dr. Amina Carter. I dropped my bags, silenced my phone, and stared out at the bend of the river. In less than a day, I'd be in a boardroom presenting the vision my team and I had built slide by slide, service by service. I let myself breathe. When I finally powered my phone back on, a flood of messages sprinted across the screen. Missed calls from Mom, rapid-fire texts from Naomi, 3 from Dad. I skimmed, then stopped. The first shockwave had landed back in Buckhead exactly as predicted. From Naomi, where are you? Mom is calling every restaurant in a 50-mile radius. All booked. All closed. This is on you. From Dad, your mother is unraveling. Please reconsider. At least send a menu. From Mom, you are humiliating us. This is cruelty. I told people you were handling the entire service. By early evening, the guests had begun to arrive. Venture folks in winter cashmere, brand directors in velvet, and most notably, Dr. Amina Carter. They came expecting a handcrafted feast because my mother had promised one. Instead, they got an immaculate kitchen that hadn't seen a pan all day and a refrigerator stocked for a family of 4, not a powered dinner for 28. Naomi again. We're ordering pizza. Can you understand the PR nightmare you've created? A follow-up, harried and breathless. 2 local places split the order. Boxes everywhere. Mom's plating slices on the heirloom china. I picture the scene too easily. Monogrammed linen, crystal stems, a parade of cardboard. The same people my mother had called real were balancing paper triangles on 1,000 thread count napkins. Another message. Amina looks unimpressed. People are leaving early. Mom's telling everyone you've always been unreliable. She said you don't have a real job. I set the phone face down and ordered room service, roasted fish and greens, and ate in silence. There was nothing to fix. There never had been. You cannot plate respect on short notice. By the next afternoon, I was in Harbor Vista's glass-walled conference suite, my team on standby by message if needed. When Dr. Carter walked in for our pre-brief dinner, she was poised, cordial, and visibly tired. Ms. Brooks, she said, shaking my hand with warmth. Call me Amina. Forgive me. I just flew in from the strangest holiday gathering I've ever attended. I kept my expression open, not curious enough to pry, but human enough to invite the story. She chuckled without mirth. A hostess in Atlanta promised an elaborate multi-course dinner prepared by her eldest daughter. I arrived to a pristine, unused stove, a frantic family, and by night's end, pizza on antique china. She shook her head. It wasn't the food, honestly. It was the blame. The mother spent the evening shredding the absent daughter, calling her unstable and unambitious, while the younger sister tried to pitch me PR between bites of plain cheese. That sounds memorable, I said, letting the understatement sit between us. Memorable for all the reasons no one wants. A beat. Then her eyes brightened. Anyway, better subjects. I've followed Aurora gatherings for 2 years. Your logistics are surgical, your creative restraint is rare, and your margins, she gave an approving tilt of her head. Let's talk shop. We did. For 2 hours we walked through activation plans for 5 Gulf properties, service team scaling, a phased culinary residency with regional black chefs, and a staffing pipeline through 2 HBCU's hospitality programs I'd already initiated. She asked sharp questions. I answered from the bones of my work. What we were building together wasn't just pretty, it was durable. Halfway through dessert, Amina's chief of staff hurried in with a tablet. I'm sorry to interrupt. You'll want to see this. He angled the screen. Someone had posted a photo from a Buckhead foyer that I knew too well. There on the wall hung a family portrait from years back. I stood blurred at the edge of the frame while Naomi and my parents smiled crisp in the center. The caption, when the plan is crystal but the table is cardboard. Lessons in leadership from last night's not-so-merry mixer. The comments were ruthless in that faux polite corporate way. Amina's gaze flicked from the tablet to my face and back. I didn't blink. I didn't need to. My truth didn't depend on whether she connected the last name. She set the device aside. Let's get some rest, she said finally, voice even. Tomorrow we finalize what we both came here to do. That night in my hotel room, the river throwing shifting light across the ceiling, Fortitude confirmed the cover lineup again. My profile anchored the package with the headline, From Unseen to Unshakable, How Amara Brooks Built a Hospitality House Without a Safety Net. The feature included a photograph of me holding a signed agreement with a client whose executives wore the particular look of people who know a good bet when they see one. Publication date, December 27th. I set an early alarm. In the morning, there would be a boardroom, a contract, and a pen that had been waiting for my hand since the first day I said yes to my own life. The next morning, December 26th, I walked into Harbor Vista's main boardroom. Sunlight spilled through towering glass windows, bouncing off polished wood and stainless steel water pitchers. My presentation deck was queued up, my notes crisp, and my pulse steady. This was what I had been preparing for, not just for weeks, but for 6 years of climbing in silence. The executives filed in, suits pressed, voices low, each carrying the kind of authority that could shift markets. Dr. Amina Carter entered last, her presence commanding the room without effort. She greeted me with a firm handshake. "Ms. Brooks," she said, "let's make history." For the first hour, it was flawless. I laid out logistics pipelines, staffing structures, and menu innovation that blended Southern roots with global refinement. I spoke of sustainability, of hiring local Black talent, of creating not just events but cultural experiences. Heads nodded, pens scratched. Even the usually stone-faced CFO cracked a smile when I projected our profit growth. Then the door opened. Amina's assistant slipped inside, tablet in hand, face tight. "Dr. Carter, you should see this." He placed the device before her. She glanced down. At first, mild interest, then a frown, then a startled double take. She lifted her head, eyes narrowing on me, then back at the screen. "Amara," she said carefully, her voice softer now. "This photo. This was taken in Atlanta last night." I leaned over. It was the same image I'd glimpsed the evening before, now splashed across LinkedIn, trending with thousands of reactions. My mother's face red with panic, Naomi clutching a pizza box, the Waterford crystal glinting absurdly beneath greasy cardboard. And on the wall, our Thanksgiving family portrait, where I was barely a shadow in the far corner. I nodded. "Yes, that's my family's house." A hush fell over the boardroom. One of the executives set down his pen. Amina looked back at me, her brow arched. "The woman who spent the night calling her eldest daughter a failure, that was your mother?" "Yes." "And the daughter she was tearing apart?" Amina pressed. "Was you?" "Yes." My voice didn't waver. "They don't know about Aurora gatherings. They've never asked. They think I'm unemployed, living on scraps." I chose not to correct them. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the projector. Then Amina laughed, warm, genuine, almost incredulous. "Unbelievable," she said, shaking her head. She humiliated herself in front of her entire circle, not knowing her daughter is the very entrepreneur I've been eager to work with. "This," she gestured to the screen where my family's chaos had gone viral, "is the definition of irony." Her business partner leaned forward. "So let me confirm. Last night's host has no idea that the same unemployed daughter could have orchestrated a flawless service at a moment's notice." "That's correct," I said. "But she never cared to find out." The assistant interrupted again. "One more update." He projected the latest headlines on the wall. There I was, my photo on Fortitude's digital cover, bold letters declaring, "From Unseen to Unshakable, How Amara Brooks Transformed $6,000 into a multi-million-dollar hospitality empire." The board members murmured. Amina studied the screen, then turned back to me. "So while your family was passing around pizza slices, you were preparing to sign a deal that secures your company's place on the national stage." I let the silence linger, then answered simply, "Yes." Amina smiled, wide and unrestrained. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is the easiest decision we'll make this year. Let's get this partnership on paper." As the champagne was poured, my phone buzzed violently against the table. 32 missed calls, 22 texts, all from home. I didn't reach for it. Not yet. I picked up the pen instead. The ink flowed smooth and final across the dotted line. Aurora Gatherings was no longer just mine, It was a national name. Only then did I glance at my phone. A single text from Dad lit the screen. Your mother just fainted. What is Aurora Gatherings? I slid the phone back into my bag and raised my glass. To new beginnings, I said. The room echoed me. The moment I signed that $2.4 million contract, my world expanded, and theirs began to crumble. When I finally checked my phone in the quiet of my suite, the messages were frantic, scattered, almost unreadable. From Mom, answer me right now. From Naomi, is this some cruel prank? You're not really on the cover of Fortitude. From Dad, your mother is hysterical. Call us immediately. I scrolled further down. From Mom, pretending to be successful to embarrass us? Heartless. But the truth was now beyond me. Amina's LinkedIn post had gone live with a photo of us, glasses raised, signatures inked, her caption glowing with praise. She tagged Aurora Gatherings, Harbor Vista Hospitality, and deliberately Patrice Brooks. Within minutes, the comment section filled with congratulations from hotel directors, celebrity planners, and even old clients vouching for my work. The post was spreading like wildfire. Back in Atlanta, the gossip mill turned merciless. Naomi's texts told me everything I didn't need to ask. Harbor Vista pulled our PR contract. That's $500,000 gone. Do you realize what you've done? Mom was dropped from the museum board. She says it's unrelated, but everyone knows. Dad's friends are laughing. They're asking how he didn't know his own daughter was running an empire. Their house of glass cracked overnight. For years they had built a reputation on the story that Naomi was the jewel and I was the shadow. Now the world saw through it. The so-called unemployed daughter had been the powerhouse all along. And yet, instead of joy, I felt something heavier, relief, maybe but tinged with grief. I hadn't set out to ruin them. I'd only chosen not to play small anymore. Then came a call I never expected. Dad. Not a text. An actual call. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. Amara, he said, his voice low. I owe you words I should have spoken years ago. I stayed silent. I knew, he confessed. About the business. A letter came to the house once. I saw the name Aurora Gatherings and I suspected it was you. But your mother was so certain of who you were, of what you weren't. And I let her version stand. It was easier than fighting her. And for that I failed you. For a moment I couldn't breathe. It was the first honest thing he had said to me in over a decade. Why didn't you fight for me? I asked. He paused. Because silence felt safer. But silence made me complicit. Now, watching everything unravel, I see the cost. I closed my eyes, listening. For the first time, my father wasn't defending their story. He was dismantling it. But Mom's voice pierced through in the background, sharp even through the phone. She destroyed us, Leonard. She destroyed us. No, Mom, I whispered, more to myself than to her. You destroyed yourselves. I ended the call gently, not in anger, but in certainty. Meanwhile, my own life was unfolding in the opposite direction. The Fortitude cover went viral, interviews poured in, and Aurora Gatherings was fielding over 200 new inquiries within a week. 3 new contracts alone totaled $11 million. Marisol officially became our culinary director, Tarek accepted the role of COO, and I signed papers for an expansion into 5 cities. The company I'd once built in secrecy was suddenly everywhere. Magazines, TV interviews, even a streaming service documentary pitch titled Unseen to Unshakable, the Amara Brooks story. And yet, beneath the champagne toasts and headlines, one truth kept echoing. This wasn't revenge. It was revelation. The world finally saw me. My family, for the first time, had to see me too. 3 months later, I agreed to meet my parents and Naomi face to face. I chose the setting carefully, a quiet restaurant in downtown Chicago, my city, my ground. When they walked in, they looked diminished. Mom's usual sharp posture sagged, the authority she carried like armor had slipped. Naomi's confidence had drained away, her voice softer, stripped of its usual sugar-coated arrogance. Dad looked older than I'd ever seen him, lines deepened around his eyes. Before anyone could launch into excuses, I slid a single page across the table. Here are my conditions, I said evenly. They leaned in. On the page was a short list. Respect me as your equal, or we have no relationship. No more treating me like the family servant. public acknowledgement of my accomplishments. A genuine apology, not just words. Family therapy. All of us. No exceptions. This isn't open for debate, I told them. If you want me in your lives, it has to be as your daughter, not your staff. As Naomi's sister, not her shadow. Mom's lips trembled, eyes filling with tears. Amara, we've lost so much already. My seat on the board. Naomi's clients. People whispering about us at every gala. That's not on me, I replied calmly. Dad lifted his head. She's right. We did this to ourselves. Amara, we're not here to blame you. We're here to ask for another chance. Naomi spoke for the first time. I was jealous, she admitted. Mom made me feel important by making you small. I see now how wrong that was. She twisted her napkin in her lap. I've been seeing a therapist. She says we built a family system where someone had to be the scapegoat, and we made that you. I'm sorry. Mom finally spoke, voice breaking. I'm sorry too. Not just for Christmas Eve, but for all the years I refused to see you. I couldn't bear the idea that you'd outgrow the life I wanted for you. So I tried to shrink you. I studied their faces. For the first time, I saw cracks in the facade, humility seeping in where arrogance used to reign. I'll think about it, I said at last. But understand, if we rebuild, it will be on my terms. And Mom, I paused. If you ever want Aurora Gatherings to handle an event for you, you'll be paying full price. For the first time in years, she gave me a real smile. Fair. 6 months later, the roles had flipped completely. My parents and Naomi sat at my dining table in my condo overlooking Lake Michigan, served by the very staff who now called me boss. I didn't lift a pan or fetch a plate. That boundary would never bend again. I raised my glass. Let me say this clearly. Success doesn't need permission. Self-worth doesn't need validation. Respect is not negotiable. Mom nodded, eyes damp. She had been in therapy for months, and even stood up at her club to admit she had been wrong. Naomi's firm had rebranded, and, ironically, she'd submitted a proposal to handle PR for Aurora Gatherings. We were considering it, but only because the work was strong, not because of blood ties. Dad now introduced me, with a steady pride that felt both new and overdue. But the biggest change wasn't theirs. It was mine. I no longer shrank myself to fit their expectations. I no longer hid my wins. Aurora had grown to over 100 employees and 5 thriving branches. Our documentary aired on national television, celebrated as a story of resilience and reinvention. Most mornings, I still paused in front of the mirror, smoothing my blazer. And that's how I finally turned years of being underestimated into the power to stand tall in my own light. Aurora Gatherings. What I learned is simple. I am not your servant. When you stop living in the shadows of other people's expectations, and for once in my life, I believed to rise higher than they ever imagined. Have you ever been overlooked, doubted, or treated like you weren't enough, only to prove everyone wrong? I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments, because your voice might inspire someone else who feels invisible right now. Speech balloon. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Together, we're building a community that believes in self-respect, resilience, and never shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. Remember, your worth isn't defined by their vision, it's defined by your own. So step boldly into your light.